Imagine this. A billionaire CEO disguises himself as a blind cripple just to see who will truly help him. 4 days, everyone ignored him, until one poor young woman stopped and treated him with kindness. But when the shocking truth came out, that he was never blind, never crippled, her reaction left him speechless. The city stretched out beneath Ethan Cole's penthouse, a sea of glittering lights and towering skyscrapers. To anyone else, it was a view that screamed success, an empire at his feet, proof of the countless billions he had amassed as CEO of Cole Enterprises. But to Ethan, the lights blurred into emptiness. He leaned back in his leather chair, phone in hand, scrolling through yet another headline: Billionaire visionary Ethan Cole doubles his net worth in just 2 years. He should have felt proud. The world admired him, envied him. But what good were admiration and envy when every smile directed at him came with hidden motives? 4 years, Ethan had entertained dates with models, actresses, and socialites. They admired his wealth, his lifestyle, his influence, but not him. The moment he turned off the money tap, the sparkle in their eyes dulled. The penthouse, sprawling and immaculate, felt like a gilded cage. Every corner gleamed, every detail screamed luxury, but there was no warmth. Not a laugh echoing through the halls, not a genuine voice that loved him simply for being Ethan, not Mr. Cole, the billionaire. He poured himself a glass of scotch, staring at his reflection in the dark window. A man in his mid-30s, sharp suit, perfect posture, yet his eyes betrayed him, tired, longing, almost broken. What is the point of all this if I can't find someone who loves me, not what I own? The sound of approaching footsteps broke his thoughts. It was Thomas, his driver and most trusted aide. The older man had been with him for over a decade, long before Ethan's empire reached global heights. "Long day, sir?" Thomas asked, his voice carrying quiet concern. "Every day is long, Thomas," Ethan muttered, setting the glass aside. "The longer I live this way, the more I feel like everyone sees me but no one sees me." Thomas frowned, used to his boss's brooding but sensing something deeper tonight. "You've got everything men dream of. Money, power, respect. What's missing?" Ethan turned, his voice low but weighted. "Love. Real love. Someone who'll hold my hand when I'm nothing. No private jets, no headlines, no billion-dollar company. Just me." A silence lingered between them. Then Ethan spoke again, almost hesitantly, as if confessing a forbidden secret. "I have to know, Thomas. I need to test the world. To strip everything away and see if someone can look at me blind, crippled, useless, and still care. Not out of pity, not out of greed. Out of love." Thomas's brows furrowed. "You can't mean." "I do," Ethan cut in firmly, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. "Tomorrow I stop being Ethan Cole, the billionaire CEO. Tomorrow I'll be nothing. And only then will I find out who truly sees me." The city lights flickered outside as if answering his vow. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something close to purpose. The next morning, Ethan Cole rose earlier than usual. He had barely slept. His mind was restless with thoughts of his plan. The penthouse sunlight poured in, bouncing off marble floors and polished steel, but none of it felt real to him anymore. All this wealth, private jets, cars and luxury estates, had never bought him what he desired most: authenticity. He stood before the mirror, adjusting his tie, but instead of admiration, disgust filled his gaze. This is the uniform of a man who will never know if anyone loves him for himself. Only for what he has. Thomas entered quietly with a tablet full of schedules. "Sir, you have back-to-back meetings?" "Cancel them all," Ethan interrupted, loosening his tie. Thomas froze. "Sir? I mean it. Today is the beginning of something new. I won't step into another meeting, not until I've lived a different life." Thomas set the tablet down, worry knitting his brows. "You're serious about this disguise thing, aren't you?" Ethan nodded. "More serious than I've ever been. I need to know the truth. I'll pretend to be blind and crippled, live like someone forgotten by the world. If kindness exists, I'll find it there." The older man sighed heavily, clearly torn. "It's dangerous, sir. You won't have your guards, your cars, your security. People may mistreat you." Ethan's lips curved in a faint smile. "That's the point, Thomas. I need to be treated as nothing. Only then can I know who sees me as a man, not a wallet." Within hours, a plan unfolded. Ethan's wardrobe of designer suits was replaced with second-hand clothes, loose and worn. His polished shoes were swapped for scuffed sneakers. A pair of dark glasses concealed his piercing eyes, and a collapsible cane completed the image of a blind man. To make the act more convincing, he tied a brace around one leg, forcing himself into a slow, uneven limp. When he looked at himself in the mirror again, even he barely recognized the man staring back. No longer Ethan Cole, billionaire CEO. Now just an anonymous cripple the world would pass by without notice. Thomas's voice cracked slightly. "You're sure about this?" Ethan placed a firm hand on his shoulder. "If I can't find truth this way, then maybe truth doesn't exist at all." Later that day, a modest taxi, paid in cash, dropped him off in a bustling city marketplace. The noise of vendors shouting prices, children laughing, and cars honking filled the air. Ethan gripped his cane, feigning blindness, and began to shuffle forward. As he moved through the crowd, shoulders bumped him roughly, muttered curses followed, and no one offered a hand. For the first time in his life he felt invisible, and strangely alive. He had stepped into a world where his billions meant nothing. And that was exactly what he wanted. The sun beat down on the crowded streets, making the air heavy with heat and the aroma of fried food, roasted corn, and freshly cut fruits. Ethan, hunched slightly, moved slowly through the market with his cane tapping the uneven pavement. His leg brace forced him into an awkward limp, and he deliberately stumbled once or twice to see if anyone would notice. They didn't. Vendors shouted loudly, calling for customers, while passers-by brushed past him with irritated glances. One man muttered under his breath, "Out of the way, old fool." Another woman hissed, "Why come to the market if you can't even walk properly?" The words stung, but Ethan forced himself to keep moving. This was the reality he needed to see, the harshness of a world without wealth to shield him. He reached a busy crossing where motorbikes whizzed by dangerously close. He hesitated, tapping his cane in confusion. Drivers honked angrily. "Move," someone yelled. A wave of humiliation washed over him. For the first time Ethan felt powerless. And then it happened. A soft but firm voice broke through the noise. "Careful. Let me help you." A gentle hand touched his arm. Ethan turned slightly and caught the scent of soap and roasted beans. The hand belonged to Maya, a young woman in her mid-20s. Her clothes were simple, patched in places, but her eyes, though he kept his hidden, he could sense were kind. She guided him carefully across the road, shielding him with her body from rushing motorbikes. Once on the other side she asked, "Are you all right, sir? Did anyone hurt you?" Ethan forced a weak smile, maintaining his act. I'm fine. Thank you. Most people just push me aside." Maya shook her head, almost offended. "That's wrong. Everyone deserves respect, no matter what." Ethan felt something stir in his chest. He hadn't heard words that pure in years. "Here," she added, pulling out a small plastic stool near her roadside stall. "Sit down before you fall. I sell food, but you don't have to buy anything. Just rest." Her stall was humble, boiled groundnuts, fried plantains, and bottled water displayed neatly. She handed him a bottle without hesitation. "You must be thirsty." Ethan hesitated. I don't have money right now." She smiled warmly. "I didn't ask for money." For a moment Ethan's throat tightened. He had lived in a world where every gesture came with a price tag, every smile tied to expectation. Yet here was a stranger offering him kindness freely. They spoke for a while. Maya told him about her life, how she worked long hours to support her sick mother, how she dreamed of saving enough to study nursing one day. She never complained. Instead, she spoke with quiet dignity, her resilience shining through every word. Ethan listened, captivated. This is real, he thought. Her compassion wasn't performance, it was who she was. As the sun began to dip, Ethan rose, leaning on his cane. "Thank you for everything," he murmured. Maya smiled again. "Come by any time, sir. Even if it's just to rest." As he limped away, Ethan's heart raced. He had finally met someone who saw him. Not a billionaire, not a cripple, but simply a man in need. And that changed everything. Ethan returned to the marketplace the next day, dressed in the same worn-out clothes, his cane tapping against the pavement as he moved. This time he wasn't there for the experiment. He wasn't there to test the cruelty of strangers. He was there for Maya. She noticed him almost immediately. "You're back," she said warmly, dusting off the small plastic stool near her stall. "Sit. The sun's too hot for you to stand around." Her voice carried a natural kindness that disarmed him. She didn't ask where he came from or why he was always alone. She simply welcomed him. Ethan lowered himself onto the stool, pretending to fumble for balance. Maya offered him a small pack of fried plantains. You need strength." Again Ethan hesitated. "I told you yesterday I don't have money." She waved it off. "If you keep saying that, I'll stop offering. Don't worry about payment. You remind me of my father. He was blind too before he passed. He always said kindness costs nothing, The words hit Ethan like a stone in still water, rippling through him. For the first time in years, someone was giving without expecting anything in return. Over the next several days, Ethan found himself drawn back to her stall again and again. He would sit with her for hours, listening as she told stories about her mother's failing health, the customers she dealt with, her dreams of going to school. "Do you ever get tired?" he asked one afternoon. Maya laughed softly, wiping sweat from her brow. "Of course. But if I stop, who will take care of Mama? Life doesn't pause because we're tired. It just keeps moving." Ethan studied her quietly from behind his dark glasses. The strength in her words, the way she spoke without bitterness, she was unlike anyone he'd ever met. Women in his world talked about brands, vacations, and investments. Maya spoke of sacrifice, dignity, and dreams born from hardship. One evening, a child ran past and accidentally knocked over a tray of groundnuts from her stall. The boy froze, terrified. Maya simply knelt, smiling, and helped him gather what had spilled. "Don't worry. Accidents happen," she said kindly. The child's face lit up with relief before he ran off. Ethan felt something shift inside him. "She treats everyone with the same kindness she treats me. This isn't pity. This is who she truly is." Before leaving that night, he said softly, "You're different, Maya. You don't even know me, yet you give so much." She shrugged, smiling gently. "The world is already hard enough. If we can't help each other, what's the point of living?" As he limped away into the night, Ethan realized his feelings were no longer curiosity, they were affection. Deep, genuine affection. Maya wasn't just passing his test. She was touching his soul in ways he never thought possible. For the first time in his life, Ethan Cole, billionaire, CEO, master of empires, felt truly seen. The clouds gathered that afternoon, dark and heavy, as if the heavens were preparing to release a storm. Ethan sat at Maya's stall, listening to her hum quietly while packing up the last of her goods. The marketplace buzzed with people rushing to close for the day, trying to beat the rain. "Sir," Maya said gently, glancing at him, "the rain is coming. You should head home." Ethan tilted his head, playing the part of a helpless man. "Home is far. I'm not sure I'll make it in time." Her brows furrowed in concern. She paused for only a second before making her decision. "Then you'll come with me." Before he could protest, Maya guided him away from the marketplace, her hand steady on his arm as thunder rolled in the distance. The rain began in heavy sheets, soaking them both as they hurried through narrow streets until they reached a small one-room house with a corrugated roof. Inside, Maya lit a small kerosene lamp that flickered against cracked walls. The space was humble, a thin mattress pushed to one side, a wooden stool, and a few cooking pots stacked neatly in the corner. But despite its poverty, it felt warm, human. "Sit here," she said, pulling out the stool for him. "You're shivering." Ethan obeyed, though in truth his shiver wasn't from cold but from what he was witnessing. Maya hurried to the back, returning with an old towel and a dry shirt clearly belonging to someone else, perhaps her late father. "Change into this." "I'll turn around," she said, giving him privacy without a trace of awkwardness. Ethan was stunned. He had more clothes in his penthouse closet than he could ever wear, yet here was a woman with so little offering him what was likely her only spare. He slipped into the shirt, its fabric worn but warm, and felt his throat tighten. Meanwhile, Maya busied herself with a small pot on a kerosene stove, cooking beans with what little she had left. The smell soon filled the room. She placed a steaming bowl before him, smiling. You need strength." He stared at the food. "This is yours. You need it more than I do." Maya shook her head firmly. "Don't argue. You're my guest." Ethan lifted the spoon slowly, his eyes misting behind the dark glasses. Every bite tasted of sacrifice and sincerity. She wasn't giving out of abundance, she was giving from her lack. For hours the rain poured outside while they talked. Maya spoke of her late father, of how she wished she could become a nurse to help others like him. Ethan listened silently, his heart heavy with emotions he could barely contain. As the storm eased, he finally whispered, "Why do you help me so much? You barely know me." Maya smiled softly. "Because one day I might need help too. And I pray someone won't look away." In that small, dimly lit room, Ethan Cole, billionaire in disguise, realized he had found the rarest treasure, a heart untouched by greed. The days turned into weeks, and Ethan's visits to Maya's stall became a rhythm, a quiet sanctuary away from the shallow world he knew. He often wondered how much longer he could keep up the disguise. Each time she smiled at him, each time she shared her food or spoke about her dreams, guilt gnawed at him. What will she think when she learns the truth? That answer came sooner than he expected. It was a Friday evening, the marketplace buzzing with end-of-week shoppers. Ethan sat on his usual stool, cane across his lap, while Maya chatted cheerfully with him. Suddenly, a group of young men, rowdy, half-drunk and looking for trouble, approached her stall. "Hey Maya," one of them sneered. "Why waste your time on this useless cripple? He can't even feed himself. What good is he to you?" Ethan lowered his head, keeping calm, but Maya's face hardened. "Leave him alone. He's not hurting anyone." The men laughed cruelly. One snatched a bag of groundnuts from her stall. "Come on, why defend him? Maybe he's just pretending, trying to fool you." Maya stepped forward, blocking them. "Give that back. And don't talk about him like that." "Or what?" the tallest jeered, shoving her lightly. Ethan's blood boiled. He had promised himself he'd stay in character, but watching Maya get pushed because of him snapped the last thread of restraint. In a flash, he stood up straight, eyes sharp, and with a firm voice that commanded attention barked, "Enough!" The bullies froze. The blind, crippled man they'd mocked now stood tall and strong, his cane discarded, his limp gone. His voice carried the authority of someone who had been obeyed his whole life. Maya's eyes widened in disbelief. She staggered back, shock flooding her features. You're not." The men exchanged confused glances. "What the hell?" one muttered before quickly dropping the stolen bag and retreating into the crowd. Silence followed. Ethan turned toward Maya, his heart pounding. The look on her face was worse than anger, it was betrayal. Her lips trembled as she whispered, "You lied to me?" He reached out, his voice soft. "Maya, please, I can explain." She jerked away from his hand, tears brimming in her eyes. "All this time? You made me believe you were blind, that you needed help. Was this some kind of sick joke?" "No," Ethan said desperately, his voice cracking. "I needed to know if someone could care for me without money, without status. I didn't mean to hurt you." Her chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. "You used me. You let me open my home to you, feed you, trust you, when all along it was a lie." "Maya, I don't." Her voice broke, sharp with pain. "Don't say another word." With that, she turned and ran into the crowd, leaving Ethan standing alone, the marketplace buzzing around him. For the first time in years, the billionaire who had everything felt truly powerless. And for the first time since he began the disguise, Ethan Cole questioned if he'd lost the very thing he had hoped to find. Days passed after Maya's devastating discovery, but for Ethan, each hour felt like a lifetime. He hadn't returned to the marketplace. He couldn't. Every time he pictured the look in her eyes, that mixture of shock, hurt, and betrayal, his chest tightened painfully. For a man who had built empires and commanded boardrooms, he had never felt so small, so helpless. Thomas, his ever-loyal driver, found him sitting in silence one evening, staring out at the city skyline. "Sir," Thomas said gently, "if you want her forgiveness, you must show her the truth. Not the disguise. Not the lies. You." Ethan nodded slowly. He had thought long and hard. Hiding wasn't the answer. He had tested Maya, yes, but now it was his turn to prove himself. 3 days later, invitations spread across the city for a charity gala hosted by Ethan Cole himself. The media buzzed with excitement. Everyone wanted to know what the billionaire would unveil this time. But among the thousands of invitations, one was hand-delivered to Maya. She stared at the elegant card in disbelief. Why would a billionaire invite me? For hours she debated whether to go, still wounded, still angry. But curiosity and something deeper pulled her there. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers and expensive gowns. Maya felt painfully out of place in her simple borrowed dress, but she stood at the back, eyes fixed on the stage. Then Ethan appeared. This time no disguise, no cane, no dark glasses. He wore a crisp suit, but his expression carried humility rather than pride. He stepped up to the microphone and the room fell silent. Cameras flashed. Reporters leaned forward eagerly. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "Most of you know me as Ethan Cole, the billionaire, the CEO. But what many of you don't know is that a few weeks ago I wasn't Ethan Cole. At least, not in the way you think." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Maya's heart pounded. "I disguised myself as a blind, crippled man," Ethan continued, "to see if kindness still existed in this world without money, without status. And in that search, I met someone extraordinary." He paused, eyes sweeping the room until they found her. "Maya." Gasps spread as the cameras turned toward her. She froze, her face flushing as the spotlight hit. "This woman," Ethan said, his voice cracking, "showed me compassion when I had nothing. She shared her food, her home, her heart. Not because she thought I could give her anything, but because kindness is who she is. I betrayed her trust by hiding who I was. And for that, I am deeply, deeply sorry. Then, in a move that shocked the crowd, Ethan stepped away from the podium, walked down from the stage, and before the cameras, the press, and the city elite, knelt before Maya. I don't ask for your forgiveness because of my wealth, he said softly, his voice trembling. I ask for it because without you none of this, he gestured around the glittering hall, means anything. The crowd erupted into murmurs, reporters snapping photos furiously. But in that moment, the only thing that mattered was the silence between Maya and Ethan. Her eyes filled with tears. She had never felt so torn, between the sting of betrayal and the undeniable sincerity of his confession. The ballroom was silent except for the rapid clicking of cameras. Ethan remained on one knee before Maya, his head bowed, waiting, hoping, for a response. The mighty billionaire, who once seemed untouchable, was now vulnerable before a woman from the marketplace. Maya's breath came unevenly. Her hands trembled as a storm of emotions raged inside her. The image of him limping with a cane, of her offering him food she could barely afford, of welcoming him into her small home, all of it replayed in her mind. And now this, an entire city watching her, waiting for her answer. She swallowed hard. You lied to me, she said softly, her voice barely audible yet cutting through the hall. Ethan looked up, his eyes glistening. I did. And it was wrong. But every moment with you was real. Every smile, every word you shared with me, they changed me. I can't undo the deception, but I can prove with the rest of my life that my love is true. Her eyes searched his, and for the first time she saw not the billionaire, not the disguise, but the man himself. The man who had chosen humility over arrogance, who risked humiliation to test the world, who now risked it again to win her heart. The hall seemed to blur around her. She remembered her mother's words, a man's truth is not in what he owns, but in what he's willing to give up for love. Maya's lips quivered. Slowly she stepped closer. The audience leaned forward, breaths held. You broke my trust, she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. But you also showed me something no one else ever has, honesty in the end. And courage enough to admit you were wrong in front of the whole world. Ethan's heart hammered. Does that mean? Maya reached down and lifted him gently to his feet. It means I believe in second chances. The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Reporters shouted questions, flashes filled the room, but Maya and Ethan stood as if in their own world. He pulled her into a tight embrace, whispering, Thank you, you'll never regret this. She smiled faintly against his shoulder. Don't thank me. Prove it. Ethan pulled back, nodding. I will. Starting with this. He turned back to the stage, took Maya's hand and announced into the microphone, Tonight, in honor of Maya's kindness and her dream, I pledge a scholarship fund in her name, for young women like her who want to study nursing and medicine. Because love should not just change one life. It should change many. The crowd roared with approval. Maya's eyes widened, her hand covering her mouth in shock. It wasn't the money that moved her, it was the thoughtfulness, the way he honored her dreams instead of flaunting his wealth. In that moment she realized Ethan wasn't just a man with billions. He was a man who had finally learned the true meaning of love. The gala ended in a whirl of applause and flashing lights, but for Ethan and Maya, the world had quieted into something softer, more intimate. After the event, Ethan offered his arm to Maya, not as a show for the cameras but with genuine humility. She hesitated for a moment, then slipped her hand into his. Together they walked out of the glittering hall into the cool night air. The city stretched before them, alive with lights and noise. Yet, standing on the steps of the Grand Hotel, it felt as though time had slowed. Ethan turned to her, his eyes searching. You don't know what this means to me, Maya. All my life people saw my wealth first, my name, my power. You saw a broken man, and you helped him. That's something I can never repay. Maya shook her head gently. I didn't help you for repayment, Ethan. I helped because it was the right thing to do. But I won't lie, the deception hurt. It still does. Trust isn't something that heals overnight. Her honesty cut deep, but Ethan nodded solemnly. I don't expect overnight forgiveness. I only ask for the chance to spend every day proving I'm worthy of your trust. They walked in silence for a while, her words lingering in the air. Finally Maya spoke, her tone softer. When you were pretending, you were vulnerable. You let me see the side of you the world never sees. That was real. That's the man I want to know, not the CEO everyone fears. Ethan smiled faintly. Then that's the man I'll be. For you. A gentle breeze swept through, carrying the smell of rain still fresh on the streets. Ethan glanced at her, his voice quiet but certain. Would you like to see my world? Not the billion-dollar version. Just mine. Maya raised a brow, skeptical but curious. And what does your world look like without the wealth? He laughed softly, a sound freer than any boardroom victory. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe it starts here. Walking with you with no disguise, no pretenses. They strolled down the street, ignoring the occasional stares from late-night passers-by. For once, Ethan didn't care about being recognized. He felt lighter, freer, as if shedding the disguise had stripped away not just the act but also the burden of always being the billionaire. As they reached a quiet park, Ethan stopped beneath a street lamp. He looked at Maya, his voice steady. Maya, I don't know what the future holds, but I know this. I'd give up every dollar I have if it meant keeping you in my life. She studied him, her eyes reflecting the glow of the lamp. Slowly, a smile curved her lips. Lucky for you, I don't want your dollars. I just want you to be real with me. Always. And for the first time in years, Ethan felt complete. No penthouse, no empire, no billions could compare to this moment. A man and a woman hand in hand, starting something genuine. The final shot lingered on them walking side by side, the city lights behind them, their silhouettes framed by hope. Voiceover, in a world blinded by wealth, true love sees with the heart.